winning in the Big Ten East never is going to be easy. And Maryland knows that firsthand. But Mike Locksley has done a good job of recruiting a good amount of talent to come in, and they're hoping to take a step forward in 2023. A solid season at 8-5 last year, and they're hoping to be even better. The 10 guys we'll talk about today will make that happen. When you lose the amount of talent that you do, like Maryland did in 2022, you lost Dante Demas, you lost Raheem Jarrett, Jacob Copeland, you lose quite a bit of pass catching talent, and Locksley wasted no time getting talent to replace them. KADEN PRATHER comes in from West Virginia and brings good size to the table. 6'4", 211 pounds. He averaged 9.6 yards per catch last year. So not exactly a barn burner by any means, but he is a proven reliable playmaker. So that helps, especially when you have the quarterback that you have returning. KADEN PRATHER is someone who can be at least someone who gets open, someone who, when they need to pick up extra yards or pick up a first down, you know that you can rely on him to catch the ball. Another player they bring in, but on the defensive side of the ball, is DONNELL Brown. Now, Maryland lost a couple players on the defensive end, on the edge, and Mike Locksley, once again, he didn't pout. He didn't say, well, we can't do anything about that. He went out in the transfer portal, brings in DONNELL Brown from St. Francis, a player who had 14 and a half tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, career 23 and a half tackles for loss, 10 and a half sacks. Someone who knows how to get to the quarterback, someone who can be explosive, and someone who can help a group that finished 88th in the country in sacks last year. Only produced 24 sacks. That needs to change, especially with the number of offenses they're going to face. When you have to face Michigan, when you have to face Ohio State, Penn State, it's going to be tough to win football games if you can't get to the quarterback. And granted, they had a talented secondary last year, but you need to get to the quarterback because you lost quite a bit of talent on that secondary. And they do return some players, but getting to the quarterback is really going to be a big thing there. One of those guys that's in the secondary is TARHEEB Still. I really like his game. I think that he flies under the radar. And obviously, the consistency maybe hasn't been there at times, but he is someone who has been on the radar for a lot of people, but I think overall he's still wildly underrated. Someone who can be a big time playmaker for this defense. This is a group that helped contribute to a turnover margin that was still kind of average, but at times this is a group that was really fun to watch. And I think that you're going to see a group that is going to rely more on team play as a whole instead of specific units. And obviously, the front seven plays a big part in that, but the secondary still is in good hands. Another unit that I really hope gets better in 2023 is offensive line. And DELMAR GLAZE comes back and is one of those players that could be a potential, I would say, a potential NFL draft pick. When you look at what he was able to do in 2022, I think that you're looking at a player that could take a step forward and have his name be more well known this season. That's something to keep an eye on, because when you look at, they allowed 43 sacks last year, which is 121st in college football. That's not exactly inspiring, honestly, because you need, when you talk about TAULIA Tagovailoa, you need him to stay upright. You need him to be able to take a step forward and be better than he was in 2022. And he had a solid season, but if you want him in the passing attack to take the next step, you need to be able to keep him upright. And DELMAR GLAZE is going to face a lot of talented players, but I think that he has the talent to be able to handle that. Another group that's going to face a lot of talented players is the secondary. We already mentioned one player, but BRADE is coming back after a solid season for him. 85 tackles, 2 interceptions. Again, this secondary has good talent, and they face good talent in practice too. We mentioned the 3 guys before. They're going to face a lot of talented players in practice again this year. It's just a matter of, can they translate that to being a better group? Can they translate that to when they face guys like Ohio State's Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka? Can you handle that level of pressure? Because that talent is going to test you every single play. And if you can't handle it, it's going to be a long. Now, I mentioned that they lost quite a bit of talent at wide receiver. They did bring in quite a bit of talent as well. Tyrese Chambers comes in from FIU. And when you look at his production from FIU, if you can name who was throwing him the football. One, you either really, really love college football, or two, you're a Maryland fan who did a ton of research on Tyrese Chambers. But it should also tell you how difficult it was to throw the football at FIU. And Chambers still managed to produce over 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns in his time there. So that's a really impressive performance from someone who's before this year was relatively unknown. And now he gets a chance to prove himself at a Power Five level. And that is huge for a guy like Taulia Tagovailoa to come back and know that he has a talent level that's going to help him improve as well. Another player that's going to fit into that category who was really good for Maryland at times last year, JESHAUN Jones, 557 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. At times, he was the best receiver for this group. And we just talked about a trio that goes off to the NFL. JESHAUN Jones was one of those guys that could have been even better. I think if there were less touches to go around, or if there were more touches for him, I guess I should say, to contribute. And I think that that's something to keep an eye on. Now you get maybe not as crowded of a group, maybe not as deep of a group, but that could mean that you're top heavy. And you see guys like Jones, like Chambers take a step forward this year. Another player to keep an eye on is tight end Corey Dykes, 494 yards and 3 touchdowns. Someone who could be, again, another big time playmaker. There are options in this offense, and that's really exciting. Now, what does the offense do? What does the offense look like this year? Have a coaching change? You have a different philosophy coming in. What does that mean for this group? And I think Dykes is one of those players that could take a step forward. You've seen the reliability, 58 catches on his career. And I believe that with the talent that is coming around or coming back on the outside, he's someone who could tear up the seams. He could tear up the linebackers that are trying to cover him, and that helps the offense as well. Another player to keep an eye on is Roman Hemby, the running back who started as a redshirt freshman, 989 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. I really liked what I saw from him, and at times he was extremely explosive. But what does he do to take a step forward this year? The rushing attack needs to get better. They finished 81st in the country, and that's something that needs to improve. If you're going to help this offense, getting guys in the open field is going to be the biggest thing. And obviously a lot of that stems from offensive line play. And this is a group, again, this offensive line finished 110th in tackles for loss allowed. That needs to improve. Same with the sacks. You need to keep your quarterback upright. You need to create running lanes for your running back. Roman Hemby still nearly rushed for 1,000 yards. And I believe that he could do that if everything works out in 2023. Now, we mentioned this, the guy we're going to talk about now, Taulia Tagovailoa. He has been a solid player for Maryland's offense for a while. 3,008 yards last year, 18 touchdowns. Maybe not the best statistical season, especially when you think about what he had in terms of talent, but he's still a solid quarterback. Taulia, obviously the younger brother of Tua Tagovailoa, was once at Alabama, and transferring was honestly the best decision for him. Going to Maryland was a better place for him. It allowed him to flourish. It allowed him to be the guy, be the starter. And now he gets a chance to show why he can join Tua in the NFL. He has the talent, he has the arm talent to be able to make that happen. And a guy who is probably going to finish with almost or maybe even over 11,000 yards in his career is something that should be noted. We should take advantage of that if you're Maryland and you have the talent to make this group better. But again, being in the Big Ten East is not going to be easy. It's so hard to win in the East. It's just not going to be easy to beat teams like Penn State. You have to beat Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. You also have Michigan State. That is not a division you really want to be in. And you could have the best season that you think you could have and still finish fourth or fifth. That's a tough division to be in. And Maryland, unfortunately, doesn't get any breaks play all those teams. So now it's just a matter of figuring things out and putting together a good group to help win more games in 2023.